going to talk about trans rights with Maria João Souza from 12E.
My name is Maria. In other words, I'm here to speak today about trans rights. Trans rights in sign language means become, beautiful, and myself. Just like in words, in sign language, they have meaning. My presentation will be accessible for all, so everything will be written, in case you were without. Transgender. What is a transgender person? It's a person whose birth gender doesn't identify with the one they actually are. Imagine you were born female, but you don't identify as a female. Therefore, you go to therapists and you are diagnosed with gender dysphoria. Gender dysphoria is when you have a condition of distress because of your gender identity. You can imagine how awful it is to look every day in the mirror and be like, that's not who I am. It will never be, unless I do surgery and unless I use hormones. Transsexual is a subset of transgender, but some transsexual people reject the label of transgender. Next one, please. This activist is the one who inspired me in the subject and created awareness of this. He is a deaf activist who has been on many modeling magazines and on a TV show called Titans. Maybe you have seen it, maybe not. He was the one who made me aware that in the LGBT community there are some people who are disabled as well, and they don't have the meanings or the resources to be there. For example, in Pride, everyone knows what Pride is, but some people who are deaf or are in wheelchairs can't attend Pride, even if they feel like that will be the only place they will feel where they belong, because it's not accessible for all. His main focus is to educate others on issues regarding being queer, disabled, within a safe space. He does TED Talks like this one, for example, and he is a great inspiration for me. And when a memo done by the Trump administration, which I'll talk later on, was done, he was the first one to organize a riot on this subject. Myself, I learned about the Stonewall riot, which was the first LGBT riot, was done by a trans black woman who was a prostitute as well. So if you ever think about the rights we have today, it was done by a black transgender prostitute. The next one. This is the memo that caused the revolution last year, and it's still in debate because people think they have the right to choose what we do with our bodies. The memo states, the sex listed on a person's birth certificate as originally issued shall constitute definitive proof of a person's sex unless refuted by reliable genetic evidence. For example, Chella, who was the one who was before, if you can go back just to show who he is. This man, he is transgender. He has been on testosterone for 2 years. He has done top and bottom surgery. And you are telling me he has to go to the same bathroom as me? Because that's his birth gender. That doesn't make any sense, does it now? How can you say this is a woman by law? This is a woman? Are you kidding? Makes some sense. And even in the Netherlands, who is one of the most advanced countries in regards of LGBT rights, you have to have been on testosterone in the case of male transition. You have to be on hormones for 3 years. He has only been on within 2. You have to have top and bottom surgery to be recognized by that gender. And top and bottom surgery goes around 20,000 euros. Hormones goes for 5,000 euros every year. And even by that reliable genetic DNA test, it will still show up as him being a female. I can go on. This violates clearly the human rights. This is the second one, which I think is the most important one. Everyone is entitled to all the rights and freedoms set forth in this declaration, without distinction of any kind, such as race, color, sex, language, religion, political or other opinion. The rest it doesn't apply, but you can still read it. As you can see, it's not fair to judge someone just because I wouldn't never call him a she. Just because I know he's trans, I wouldn't call him a she. And that's just hurtful. And people still do it. If he were to go to court, people would have to call him a she. This is some of the violations towards trans individuals. In the state of Guatemala is responsible for extrajudicial killings of LGBT. This was done by the state. They send out cops and other authorities to kill people who defend LGBT rights. They refuse to recognize trans individuals as their new gender. They cannot have new documents. It's illegal, they can't have them. You can have surgery outside, you can have hormones, still not going to give you those documents. And if you actually go against this and say right forward that you defend their rights, you will have threats, you will be harassed, you will suffer physical violence and other sorts. Chalaman, like I said, organized the riot against this memo by the Trump administration, which is in a video that I'll show now. It's cut into parts, so I'm sorry about that.
I want to thank you all for coming out on this super hot night. Growing up in central Pennsylvania, there was a point in my life where I didn't believe I'd ever see this many queer supporters here, so thank you. I also want to say I will be posting this later, so anyone who's deaf and hard of hearing can read it on Instagram. This morning I had company over when I heard the news. I was trying my best to smile and hold back the tears. But then, with the help of my friend Philip Picardi, I realized we should not be burdened having to pretend this is any other day. This is not at all normal or okay.
Not okay! Not okay! Not okay! Not okay! Not okay! Not okay! Not okay!
Next one, please. There's the second part, I told you so.
Regardless of age, sexuality, gender, or race, everyone should be standing with us. This is an attack on us all. This is a human rights issue. Trans rights are human rights. I want you all to remember who you are and however you identify is valid. This day and the orange fucking devil in the White House holds no power over that.
I forgot there was that one swear word. I'm sorry, the teacher is about me. She warned me not to swear. But like I said, trans rights are equal rights. Respect everyone's rights. It doesn't matter who you are, what you identify as. Just respect people. They are like you. Even if you think, oh, they're low class, he's trans, he's blah, blah, blah. No, it doesn't matter. He's a human. So thank you.
Thank you, Maria. And now, speaking about refugees, we'll have João Rocha and Vasco Carvalho. Thank you.
Hi everybody, I hope enjoying. I'm Vasco Carvalho, this is my colleague João Rocha, and we are here today to explain to you a little bit of the refugee crisis.
What's up, everyone? So, at some point of your life, I bet you all heard about the refugee crisis because of the armed conflicts in the Middle East. You probably heard about it on the internet, news, and so on. Now, my colleague Vasco is going to walk you through what a refugee really is.
So, a refugee is someone from another country, of course, who was forced to leave his country or her country due to war, persecution, or natural disasters. Nowadays, there are about 70.8 million refugees, and it is increasing by 37,000 every day. So now, we are going to show you the top 5 countries with the biggest numbers of refugees. The first one, Syria, 6.7 million refugees.
The second one is Afghanistan with 2.7 million refugees. This is due to the war.
Third one, South Sudan, 2.3 million.
Myanmar, 1.1 million refugees.
And the fifth, Somalia with 900,000 refugees, I'm sorry.
So, the Middle East, as you all probably can tell, most refugees come from there because in the last 2-3 decades, the armed conflicts have been way worse than they're getting out of hand, basically. And I'm going to explain to you what the Syria war really is and why it's causing all the fuss. The war in Syria began at March 15 of 2011. And because of this, families, hundreds or thousands even, families suffered because of these conflicts, and hundreds of thousands of people died because of it. And also the country is completely torn apart, and yeah, that's pretty much it. It's like the standard of living in Syria, as you can see, by decades. And nowadays there's around 12 million people that need humanitarian aid, and they don't have it. The only humanitarian aid that they're getting is from the UN, and it's so little that it doesn't have for everyone, because the country is not producing any resources. So as you can see, Syria in 2011 and now in 2015. And just a quick update, in October of this year, it began a military operation in the south-north of Syria in October. And just listen closely, in only a time span of 1 month, 130 civilians died and around 160,000 fled, including 7,000 children. Just listen to it. 7,000 children that couldn't have a normal childhood and a peaceful life.
So, now, the Afghan civil wars. The first one in 1979 caused the first wave of refugees from Afghanistan to Pakistan and Iran. This was caused by the Soviet invasion. Then, when the war ended in 1989, the refugees, of course, returned to their homes. Well, in 1919, Pakistan hosted about 6.3 million refugees. Think about this. This is more than half of our population. Well, in 1992, Afghan civil war started, another one, because of religious persecution, which caused, again, a second wave of refugees to Pakistan and Iran. For 32 years, Afghanistan held the title of the country with the biggest number of refugees. But now, as we have shown you, it is the second one, because the first one is Syria. Another picture of what was Afghanistan and what it is now.
It's completely left crumbling.
Now, the immigration, Mexico to the USA. You can see here in this graphic, the number has been increasing, but in 2007, it decreased until now. Why? Because of the laws the United States have... because of the laws of the United States. You can see this. So what are the reasons and the consequences of this illegal immigration? The reasons, of course, persecution, gang violence and lack of health care and law enforcement. The consequences, death and prison. How to turn it legal? Well, first, someone must sponsor you a petition. If accepted, you will get a green card. Then, you will go to a medical examination. If you pass, you go to an interview, and if everything goes correctly, you will be a legal Mexican in the US.
Well, now I'm going to walk you through the refugee crisis that we have in Portugal. Yeah, we're also affected by it because there are millions and millions of refugees coming from the Middle East, and they're fleeing from their homes to try to find themselves a new home in Europe because, let's face it, here in Europe you can have a peaceful life, you can begin from nowhere and that's pretty much it, you can have a peaceful life. And because of it, every country can take so many refugees and have so much resources to take care of them. So the EU countries decided to each country take their share of refugees, and Portugal is no exception. In 2015, our Prime Minister António Costa asked to take around 1,600 refugees and said that Portugal could support at least 10,000 of them. And currently, our country pledged to take around 4,600 of them. And the refugees that come here, they're offered 18 months of shelter in the house, and they're given a salary of around 150 euros, so they can start all over again and begin their new life in Portugal. And they're also given language classes, so they can integrate themselves in our society and not feel the inclusion. And there's one problem, that not every single one of the refugees goes to the main cities, such as Lisbon or Porto. And some of them go to the rural areas of our country, where they feel more excluded, and there's a way bigger gap of communication, because let's face it, the people on the rural areas of our country barely know how to speak English, so there's a big gap between their communication. But yeah, that's pretty much it with Portugal. And yeah, at 20th of June, I didn't do this as well. Yeah, there's no slide. Oh, we forgot about it, but we were going to talk about the Refugee Day, the Worldwide Refugee Day, that is in 20th of June, and that's it, basically.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Thank you. And now our final intervention with 11B, Leisure, with Diogo Rocha and Gonçalo Silva. Thank you.
Oh my! What a performance that was! I might say, it was a delight to my ears. Don't you all agree? By the way, that was Elena on the drums and Samuel on the saxophone. Oh, I'm sorry. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Diogo Rocha.
And I'm Gonçalo Silva.
We are from 11th B, and we are here to talk about and give you a little insight on a quite overshadowed human right. One that doesn't get the recognition that it should, and that is actually very important. I'm talking about the article number 24 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which states that everyone has the right to rest and leisure, including reasonable limitation of working hours and periodic holidays with pay.
Well, guys, I assume none of you really like to work, is that correct? Yes, then I have excellent news for you. According to this article, you should be able to rest and do absolutely nothing for the rest of your lives and get paid for it, right?
Absolutely not.
Yes, it's not correct. As Cuban drafter Perez Cisneros said in the late 1940s, the right to leisure should not be interpreted as the right to laziness. This article was created in order to complete what was established in the previous article, the right to work. So, if you want to rest and have some time for yourself, you must work first.
What this all means is basically we all need what I like to call some me time. Some time for me. It's important to have a rest, it's important to take a break, it's important to enjoy life. If you don't have any personal time and just work, life can be very overwhelming and stressful. And this is like a snowball. Life is overwhelming and stressful, this can lead to burnout, you get less productive, and you don't put as much effort as you should and as you otherwise would that, in your work than in case you were in a more mental stable place. I'm going to give you a minor example, but it's one that I believe a lot of you will relate to. Let's think you all have a very hard test tomorrow. And you just study and study for hours and days, and you're putting your best into it. Doesn't it get to a point where it just seems that the more you study, the less you know? Does it get to a point where it seems you've been studying for hours and learned absolutely nothing? Well, this is the burnout I'm talking about. It's actually counterproductive to just think and work without having a break or a rest. It's important for your mental and physical health to give and have some time for you, to put your mind in order and to enjoy life, like I said. This is actually addressed by the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights, where they state in their article number 12 that people should have enjoyment of the highest attainable standards of physical and mental health.
On the other side of the spectrum, there are some bigger consequences of working too much. Let's take a look at Japan. Japan is a country where there have been many registered cases of people dying from overwork. There are cases of people putting in as much as 110 hours a week, which is basically three times what you do every week. There's even the case of a 56-year-old man who had to work 4,320 hours a year, which is the same as working 16 hours a day. What this article wants to keep very clear is that everyone needs a time to relax and be stress-free. Everyone should have the chance to get paid for extra working on a holiday when they could be spending time with their families, like most holidays are meant for. In conclusion, what me and you, and not only us, but what everyone who participated in these talks want to ensure is that human rights were established with the aim of giving a fair world to everyone, and it's important to not disregard their intention.
Now, just for your pleasure, Samuel and Elena will play again. Enjoy!